Most businesses today face two major marketing challenges. One, people are overloaded by information. We're talking about 4.5 billion pieces of new content every day. And two, people have much shorter attention spans and spend only about 8 seconds on anything before they jump onto the next thing. It's no wonder that companies are struggling to get their message heard. The result of poor marketing communications is that half of all new business ventures fail in their first 4 years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. With this in mind, Visual Storytelling Institute co-founders Shlomi Ron and Alex Caravallo asked themselves, how can businesses connect more powerfully with audiences? Welcome to Visual Storytelling Today. This is your number one source for the latest and most effective business marketing strategies you can apply today to rise above the noise. From video and infographics to augmented and virtual reality, join us every month to meet notable visual storytellers and discover their marketing insights and stories. Here's your host, Shlomi Ron.
Welcome everybody, my name is Shlomi Ron. I'm the co-founder at the Visual Storytelling Institute based here in Miami, Florida. I'm very excited to have an amazing guest today, Tim Sekou. He's the co-founder and CEO of Tint, which is a platform that helps brands aggregate, curate, and display any social media feeds anywhere they want, in essence. So he started 5 years ago when he realized that social content is practically siloed. You have to go to each platform separately in order to consume, and he figured out a platform that can aggregate user-generated content. Today, the company is boasting over 5,000 brands as clients from United Nations, Krispy Kreme, Lowe's Hotel, among others, that they all leverage Tint user-generated platform to add an authentic customer voice to their marketing program. So with that, welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, and excited to share what we've learned along the way with people who are more curious on how to leverage user-generated content for their visual storytelling.
Awesome. That's great. So maybe if we can kind of rewind the movie a little bit, and you can tell us how you got started in your journey with Tint. I understand that you had a different company in the beginning.
Sure. So rewind back into when I was around 5 years old, my mother asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I first told her either the first Asian American president of the United States or a hotel manager. So very different. And long story short, she positioned me and pushed me more into the political route because I always wanted to sort of solve problems in an efficient way with smart people. Mm-hmm. And so tried the political route, didn't work out, then went into business school to try out entrepreneurship as another way to still solve problems as my original sort of mission. And from there, took a class at my college where I went to USC down in Los Angeles. And the class project was to come up with an idea and take it as far as you can. Mm-hmm. Came up with the first version of what Tint is today. The first version of what Tint was today was called Hypemarks. And essentially it was more of a social bookmarking web application. Mm-hmm. And pretty much the only difference between us and every other social bookmarking application out there was that we collected content from your Facebook and Twitter, because we saw that whenever you shared content on there, it was like a form of bookmarking. And just didn't grow, didn't do that well. And so we kind of pressed the brakes and asked our customers or users at that time, what did they like the most? And they liked the aggregation technology, but they didn't like it on our web application. They liked it on their websites. And so kind of think about it, they really wanted to find a way to have good, authentic, fresh content that they've already, shared and created on their social media, but onto their websites. So, fast forward to today, we are now a content marketing platform that helps brands really humanize their marketing. So what does that mean? It means specifically like we collect the best customer content or user-generated content that's created on behalf of the brand on social media, and then be able to help them look and analyze which ones are the best content, and then clear the rights to that content with them, and then finally give them access to this content so these brands can repurpose it on their marketing channels so that there's a more content that comes in and a lot more authentic storytelling that it exudes for the viewers.
I see. So in essence, it sounds like you started almost, you had the roots of the idea was really anchored in the fact that you want to leverage social media content.
Yeah.
And initially it was
a book marketing.
Yeah, exactly, like a Reddit type experience. Yeah. And then you figure out a way that most people want kind of a more centralized or the ability to distribute this content, not just on just your platform, but on the website or elsewhere.
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. No, this is fascinating. So since we are talking about, we are the Visual Storytelling Institute, we kind of try to distribute the gospel of visual storytelling. Yeah. And it's a fairly new discipline, as you may know, had its roots obviously in the entertainment world. And since now we all, like you and a lot of other businesses, try to figure out ways to break through the clutter, then visual storytelling is one way to do it. So I'm kind of curious, what is your definition for visual storytelling?
Yeah. So, what I think about, when I think about first, I break it down to two parts. One, I think about storytelling, then I think about visual storytelling. Mm-hmm. So storytelling, obviously what differentiates a brand and a company from another one is their story. We all come from different roots. We all have our different cultures that we develop in our company. Pretty much our story as a brand is what differentiates us. And from my perspective with Tint, it's a lot around like, I can tell my story, but the best and most trusted and authentic voice of telling the story will probably be from my employees or our customers. So people outside of myself being able to tell that story. Now, to the second point of visual storytelling, we all can agree and understand that as human, we are creatures of imagery and visuals. Yep. It all goes into like, an image, speaks 1,000 words. So, yep. What we always kind of share with our brands and our clients is that we provide a way for you to authentically tell your story through your customer testimonials, your customer photos, and it doesn't even have to be your customers. It could be your audience. It could be your employees, really anyone around your community to be able to speak on behalf of you and be able to tell your story. That's what we try to achieve and share and share knowledge on for our clients.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I can totally relate to this because in fact, my first experience with the UGC was I was heading digital marketing for a Serious Decision. It's one of the leading B2B research advisory firms. And, every year they have the annual summit. And as part of the digital marketing program, we actually mounted, if you can imagine, 13 feet by 26 feet giant digital video wall, in essence. I can still remember 90 tiles. And we created this custom interface that, again, used UGC content to kind of mirror, what 2,000 attendees were thinking.
Right.
And it was a fantastic, achievement. Because I was kind of managing the project, so I really felt like people were treating it as a digital altar. They were kind of going there like, mesmerized by seeing their stuff up there, and and that's what got me interested in this category that you guys are driving, and seeing the power of people get amplified. It's like on a very small scale. I'm sure you could agree. It's almost like those ads where you have the scene as seen on TV.
Yeah.
So people are really are empowered by being part of the focus of attention. So
makes sense. And
kind of turning them into heroes, basically. So no, this is awesome. So yeah, so when we think about from that perspective, user-generated marketing is really about what you mentioned earlier, the problem of solving flat brand messages that goes every day. And if you think about all these Fortune 500 companies where the marketing team might dream up a program, and then it has to go through legal, through PR, and by the end it comes out, it's completely
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? I think another way of putting it is in marketing today, a lot of what we see is buy me, buy me, buy me. I'm the best. I'm the best.
Right.
I'm this or I'm that kind of thing. So it's pretty much an opportunity for the customers to be able to be the best marketers for the brand.
Yeah, and from that perspective, I really love your statement on your website where you say it's all about crafting authentic stories crafted by real people for real people.
Yeah,
and
that's correct.
This is really a fantastic statement because I think people tend to relate more to people like them, and
that's correct. Yeah.
And in general, I think marketing, I wonder if you agree, is that it's all about the ability to mirror the customer problem in your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I give a story where a couple months ago, as I'm an avid traveler and my bag broke, and what do I do when my bag breaks? I look for another one. And typically where we start our journey of making a purchase is on Google. And we'll make a purchase. I mean, we'll do a search and you'll get tons of results back. And, there's just a lot of noise telling you to buy this one or buy that one.
Right.
And, when I found one where it was recommended by a blog post and I went on their website afterwards and then, still trying to think about making a decision, it wasn't until I saw some great customer photos that were also using that bag that got me to, finally want to make that purchase because I relate to those people who are using the bags and I felt more trusted. I trusted the brand even more.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is always the case, with I think I saw a stat talking about 83% of people trust their, friends or colleagues than,
That's correct,
than the brand messages. Yeah. So, yeah. So can you give us like a good sense of a tint when you help clients with their UGC programs? What is the end-to-end process looks like?
Yeah. So pretty much from our perspective, what we usually do is we ask the brand, what is your marketing goal that you're trying to achieve? Typically it's engagement, but other times it's around conversions. So, depending on that. So for engagement, we'll say like, okay, if your goal is engagement, let's, start to create a campaign and come up with a hashtag that makes a lot of sense for your audiences to join in on the conversation. They'll, open it up to many different platforms like Twitter and Instagram and even other platforms that are coming out as well to elicit participation, and then basically have a call to action. And then sometimes these call to actions can tie to a prize or a nonprofit to help donate. And so that's all about sort of like, and then so all the content will start to come in, and then you have this landing page of all this great content that tells a story, right? And in this case, the story could be around a cause that you're running, or it's around a certain holiday, whatever it may be. You can tie your story to the content that the audiences and your customers are creating on behalf of you. So that's around engagement. If it's around conversion, what we can also do is really kind of look for and surface up a lot of great customer content, and then be able to repurpose that across the brand's marketing channels. So essentially their websites, their screens, their advertising units, their email marketing, because we know that, and we've seen from many different research that user-generated content outperforms brand-generated content by a lot. And just because it's just more trustworthy, it's more authentic and more genuine. So we help them, find the best customer content and then be able to bring it into their existing marketing channels so that the content just resonates with the viewer a lot more.
And what is the process, obviously, of clearing the rights from the users? Because obviously, this is part of your execution program, I would imagine, right? Yeah.
So pretty much, it's really easily streamlined, actually. So yeah, we do agree. We do, make sure we educate brands to clear the rights, especially if like you're a big company and you have a big target on your back.
Right.
Also, if you wanted to use it for very obvious and blatant advertising purposes. So let's say you do want to use user content and use that as marketing on a big digital out-of-home screen in the middle of Times Square in New York. We do encourage you to clear the rights just in case, just because that's a big, advertising space and it can be interpreted as advertising. But aside from that, what you pretty much do is you can come into our system, you look for the best content, we help you analyze that, and then you can clear the rights by typing a message, and then it goes directly into the comment box on like their photo on Instagram or their tweet. And then within that comment, you can also insert terms of service and terms and conditions URL, so the user knows what they're agreeing to. And then all they have to do is just press all they have to do is reply with a hashtag yes, and pretty much the rights are cleared. And then the brand then sort of takes that content and then repurposes it across their marketing channels.
That's interesting. So this is in the use case where the content already been published, right?
Yes, content has been published, and it's already existing out in the public. We don't look for any private content because we want to respect that privacy, but the public content already lives on the social networks. All we're doing is exposing it outside and elsewhere so that the brand can benefit from it in terms of being able to connect the emotional sentiment from the viewers, but then also give the author and the creator of the content their sort of maybe 15 seconds of fame.
Right. So what happens, for example, let's get for example, in a context scenario where you want to capture a real-time content. How do you clear the rights then? Because this is something you don't know what's going to be published yet.
Yeah. So with that, that's a good question. So with that, we usually advise the brand to come up with a unique hashtag that's very unique to like their real-time activation. This might be at an event. This might be in their screens inside their own retail stores or even their offices. So pretty much come up with a unique hashtag, because it's unique enough, and obviously this is subjective, but if it's unique enough, you can then argue that someone who uses that hashtag saw the call to action to say that, hey, join in the conversation to show up on the screen. So it goes into what we call implicit rights. So pretty much if it's unique enough and the call to action is unique enough, that means they were notified that, use this hashtag to show up on the screen. And by them doing so, they already are cognizant of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this way you kind of cover both ends, both, past content and future content that's coming in. That's
correct.
That's cool. One thing that got me thinking about, you said earlier that clients come to you for typically two use cases or business objectives, one engagement, the other conversion. So as part of doing some research for this show, I saw that you guys these days are working on a new model for tint that pretty much mapping the UGC by the stages of the customer journey. And one of the things I want to ask you about that is that, at least from what I've seen, is that the mapping is done by the platform type. So if it's a product page, obviously it's going to be down in the funnel versus if it's an
advertisement
in Jumbotron or screen. But I'm kind of wondering, do you have also a differentiation to the content type?
Related to which channel it's on, right?
Yeah, because obviously this is something that I don't know how much you can control. Maybe if you run a contest or something that gear people towards a certain type of content, then you can actually control like reviews versus just sharing an Instagram photo of the camera.
For sure. So just to rewind a little bit for those who are sort of tuning in, we sort of relaunched a new messaging and sort of vision for our company where the goal is around helping brands really humanize their marketing across their customer buying journey. So think about the last time you were looking to purchase a bag, and how are you exposed to that? How do you know when you need one? You either break one, or your friend tells you about one, or you see it on a magazine, right? And so imagine that magazine, that editorial or that advertisement was not necessarily someone who didn't relate to you, but more so someone like you wearing that same bag and having a great review on that. That's sort of how we're thinking about really integrating authentic user-generated content and imagery into part of the customer journey cycle. Now, what you're asking is, does the content differ for each of these channels? And I absolutely think so.
And the stages as well.
And the stages, right? So yeah, so you have your stages of awareness to evaluation, consideration, evaluation, purchase, and advocacy. Each of the stages have different intents for the buyer. Right. So yes, I do agree that the content, if obviously a more sophisticated marketer would understand that like the content needs to be different for each of these stages. And the same applies when you do want to integrate user-generated content into each of these stages on different marketing channels. So for example, on an advertisement, like a social ad that we integrate with, I want to have a photo of someone who has made a purchase and has had a great experience to get you excited about that. But then maybe on the evaluation stage or the consideration stage, be able to find content that from a customer that specifically relates to their experience of something differentiating them or something that really stood out to them throughout the buying experience. So the next question goes into like, how do I get these types of content?
Right.
That's where the sophisticated marketer would be able to come up with campaigns to be able to get the customers or the audiences or the community to create content for that intent. So for example, like I said, with the on the advertisement side, if I want to have content that's just related to people who've made a purchase, maybe I will have a post-purchase email that says, hey, glad you bought this. When it comes, would love to have a photo of you and your experience of making that purchase. And if we like it, we want to use it for our future advertising. We'll credit you. We'll get you your 15 seconds of fame. We want to really celebrate you as the main marketer for us. And pretty much they would then use that on an advertisement. Whereas something else from the consideration stage, you would do another campaign that's specifically related to that type of content that you would need for that initiative.
That's fascinating. So in other words, what you're saying is that basically marketers are working almost like choreographers. It can
be a choreography, or you can do like an orchestra, right? You cue certain things to get the things that you want.
Exactly, to stage the intent, as you said, in order to kind of match it.
And that's why campaigns are very important, because campaigns are sort of the kickstart and the jumpstart for the type of content that you would want to utilize for this visual marketing afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now that we have some sense of the end-to-end process and your perspective about visual storytelling, and especially how your new approach is applied to the customer journey, can you give maybe one or two examples of great UGC campaigns that you're very proud of? I think they are fantastic examples. And
so I can give one example that's like more on a small scale and another one on a big scale. So one small scale one that I thought was really awesome was FedEx. So FedEx launched a sort of, so the problem they had was like FedEx social strategy was always very bland. It was like, what would you share as a FedEx social manager? So what they decided to, and then they mentioned that they only launched their Instagram because everyone else was doing it. So they were like, we need to kind of press the break button and then sort of reset and understand what we're trying to do. So they launched this new initiative called FedEx in the Wild. And literally the tagline is letting our fans be our storytellers. So what they did was they essentially asked all their customers or even fans that don't necessarily purchase from them or use their service to like take photos of FedEx trucks, airplanes, mail, whatever it is in the wild. And so they would, snap a photo and then, use the hashtag like FedEx in the wild. And then the social media manager at FedEx would then be able to look through all of them and find the best ones, clear the rights, and then repurpose that on their own Instagram channel so that they can engage their audiences. So that one is more of an engagement side, but also as a second corollary effect, content creation, right? They're essentially outsourcing the content creation so they don't have to spend as much time or resources creating their own content on their social media. And as a result, they got around a 4x or about 400% increase in their follower growth rate in the first 9 months, because you have a lot of people just joining in and wanting to see their own photos on their Instagram channel, and then making, following them afterwards to kind of continually be inspired by what else comes out of that from their audiences. So that goes into the engagement marketing goal that I sort of mentioned in the beginning.
Yep.
The second example I would probably want to share is around the conversion side. So this is one of our customers who we work with a lot, called Lowe's Hotels. And so what Lowe's does is they know that, they're in a very competitive hospitality industry. There's a lot of options to choose from. So how can we best tell our story so that we can get more guests to be excited to stay with them?
Yep.
And so they launched a campaign to kickstart the content creation, like I mentioned in the past, called Travel for Real. And so essentially anybody who was guests of Lowe's would be able to take photos and essentially be asked to get the rights to that content. And then what Lowe's did afterwards was repurpose that authentic customer photo and content across all their marketing channels, which then relates to the customer journey. So for example, specifically, they would use customer photos on their advertisement units so that people would, when they first heard about Lowe's, they would see a kid just like them, or who would be their son or daughter, lying on a bed with their hands back and really enjoying that experience. And so Lowe's were able to use that content on an advertising unit. But then after that, they would also use it on their homepage, because when you land on their homepage, after you click on the ad, you're now evaluating and considering if you want to make that purchase. So right on the homepage, they have a slider of other customer photos or guest photos of their experience there. Not only, their stay, but like maybe specifically at the pool experience, the dining experience, and then other entertainment opportunities around the hotel. And then beyond that, once you want to make a purchase or make the booking, they have also other user-generated content within that booking page, so that in the purchase stage, you feel even more confident. So there's a consistent content experience that's very authentic, that's powered by their guests. And ultimately, it helps with the focus of increasing conversions, because at any time of your customer journey, you have content in front of you. Let's replace, or even supplement branded content that's maybe not as effective with more effective user-generated content or customer content, and then be able to convert the potential guest into a guest afterwards.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because I know for a fact when I looking to book a hotel reservation, I always check the product reviews, and sometimes you get those tiny details like, the swimming pool is the water is always too cold, or something minor like that, and it just stuck in your mind, and then
the beauty of this is that the brand gets to control that story, but also be able to tell that story very authentically through their previous guests as well.
Exactly, and I think from that perspective, on one hand, your audience gets a very authentic story from real people, but it goes both ways. I mean, some people can actually put bad reviews because it's,
And yeah, we've seen brands embrace that and then show what they did afterwards to remedy that, right? And then they can display that content and display the what they did to sort of solve that issue. And so that, is the next level of transparency that if a brand wants to, they can absolutely do that. And we've seen that as well.
Oh, that's so basically,
if there was a bad review.
If there's a moderation, like as part of your moderation process, you can actually decide, what type of content to include. And if you can have a bad review, then the client can actually decide if they want to remedy it and kind of feature this transparency.
Yeah, it's again another storytelling, right? We take care of our guests, we listen to our guests, and we solve our guests' challenges, and we showcase that as well.
Yeah, this is a great way of demonstrating the conflict in the story and how they resolved it.
There you go. There you go.
One thing that I'm kind of curious to know also what you think is, obviously when we think about UGC is really content that we don't normally compensate the audience for, or sometimes they get, some prizes as part of the contests. And the next level up, I would think, is influencer marketing. Those, mega users that have millions of followers.
Yep.
I'm kind of wondering, do you guys do any work with the major influencers as part of your UGC content?
Yeah, I think, so your answer is no, we don't do any of that right now. It may be something we do in the future. We're still kind of exploring that.
Right.
But if you kind of dive like directly into what a user-generated content definition is, it's actually quite the opposite of influencer marketing, because user-generated content typically is nothing, you don't pay for it, right? So it's true earned media or earned content that you don't necessarily pay for it. And typically you want those type of customers, those type of content, because there wasn't any alternative reason why the customer created that content or the fan created the content, aside from just pure love and great experience with your brand. And that you can tell very quickly just by the type of photo that's taken, the commentary that's shared on there. Now, nothing against influencer marketing, but influencer marketing, I think, is just maybe the secondary effect after you've seen someone be able to create a lot of great content for you without you necessarily prompting them with any other incentives, and say like, hey, we have an influencer marketing program. We'd love to maybe put you into it because you've been creating great content for us consistently. And now that conversation becomes more like, okay, we can compensate you for something, but we know that your loyalty to the brand is greater than what maybe money can pay for. So we want to build that relationship with you and sort of start something more with you, obviously. So yeah, to answer your question, we don't do anything with influencer marketing, but it is like a secondary or next step that we're exploring, because it's very natural evolution to a customer who's creating a lot of content, great content for you without you prompting them, to now creating something more personal.
Yeah, because he sees the brand is overexcited by his content or her content, and all of a sudden they have more interest, and their social status is elevated a little bit.
That's correct.
Yeah. And actually, make me think also the fact that obviously the work that you guys are doing is externally facing customers, right?
Yes.
What about looking internally inside organizations? So when we think about employee advocacy programs, where you want to kind of surface internally in the corporation intranet, social.
Great question. Yeah, so it goes into the best way I can describe this one is probably giving you guys an example again. So another example I've read and really admire is what Cisco is doing. So Cisco is still probably doing what they call #WeAreCisco. And essentially their main goal with their initiative with this is more around engagement and a little bit of conversion. So in the engagement side, it's like, how can we really engage our employees, but at the same time, how can we recruit great talent and help them understand who we are? And so the best way to do so is really utilizing what we call employee generated content.
Right.
So what Cisco did was they created this hashtag and they said, hey, Cisco, everybody employees wise, use this hashtag at any given time throughout your day to really show what it's like to work at Cisco. And so they launched that, and some stats in 2016, they grabbed all that content real quickly. They grabbed all the content and then they dispersed it on their own Instagram channels. They created they used Snapchat as well to showcase those stories, and essentially got a lot of great results. The main one I'll kind of share is that they would embed this content onto their career site, and they got around 300,000 plus visits in that full year by integrating user-generated content, or essentially employee-generated content, into there. Because as a new applicant, if you think about it, as a new applicant, I can read and see what you think the company is all about. But until I see it from the actual people themselves, I won't believe it, right? So they got a big influx of traffic because now people were able to see what it's like to work at Cisco, and Cisco was showing that it was all powered through their employees. So
what was the dominant format for those stories, like video or tweets?
It could be both photos and videos as
photos and
primary
videos.
ones. Yeah, both photos and videos as the primary ones.
Oh, that's cool. That's yeah, because it makes sense, in organization when you want to, as you said, create this authentic voice of both employees, but also, in terms of knowledge sharing and kind of breaking silos and letting employees share their ideas. I think internal UGC is definitely effective.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm also curious to know is, as you said, as part of your end-to-end process, you work with your clients to achieve conversion and engagement business objectives. But can you talk a little bit about how do you measure success? What are your KPI criteria for different stages?
Sure. Yeah. So there's definitely metrics for each of the stages that relates to the part of the customer journey. So for example, if it's on the top of the funnel where it's like more of the awareness and the evaluation and consideration sides of things, it is more on like impressions and engagement. So each engagement though in each of these funnels are a little bit different. So awareness, obviously engagement means like, did they click on something? But on the research side, it may be like time spent on site, and consideration may be like if they click through to the purchase page afterwards. So there are ways that these brands are essentially like showing before and after, right? So on your website, if you do display this, before you did it, what was your time spent on site? What was your number of click-throughs? And then when you did implement this, we can also track the journey of them clicking on a purchase page afterwards and say like, okay, did you get more clicks after you embedded customer content onto your websites, and we can help them track that. So on the engagement side, to answer your question, the engagement side, the measure of success is really like audience participation and sort of clicks, and then conversion is really clicks and purchases afterwards.
Right. And do you find that there are still some challenges in figuring out the entire attribution process?
Oh, absolutely, all the time, because marketing is not just siloed with one initiative. You have so many channels you're pushing. You have so many campaigns you're probably running at the same time. So they're all attributing to that. So even when we say that, we were able to increase this by this amount, we can't fully attribute just to us because the marketing teams may have been doing other things at the same time. The only way we can do so is we can say, stop all the other things and just focus on this part, but that's unrealistic. So it's sort of, how we think about content marketing as a whole. We can say that, this content really helps with, increasing revenue, but in fact, in actuality, there were a lot of other things that attributed to that, whether it was some PR article that came out at the same time that led to the traffic of this blog post, and then this blog post then converted, et cetera, et cetera, right? So there's always a lot of different marketing attributions that could be tied to it. That makes it a little bit more challenging to say, it was this content that absolutely converted. Like, it does help, and there is research and science that proves that customer content is more authentic and more trustworthy. So there is scientific proof behind that. But to say it is all attributed to this is very difficult because marketing teams are always running different experiments and campaigns all at the same time.
Yeah. This is like the wonders of the multivariate environment.
Exactly.
Basically, it's tough to, and especially when you think about the dashboards that each social platform has that definitely don't talk to each other. So how can you, I know there's the Hootsuite of the world that trying to centralize numbers, but.
That gets very difficult.
Yeah. Cool. So one of the things that I keep thinking a lot about is, where this whole future of visual storytelling is headed. and especially as we think about different platforms to display information. And since you guys are kind of trailblazing the multi-platform distribution of social content, from giant digital screens to desktops, mobile, email, where do you think this whole trend is going to go? We're talking about who knows, maybe next in a few weeks, Apple is going to announce their new iOS 11 with the augmented reality that's going to level the field for a lot of AR execution. So where do you think this is all going?
Yeah, I mean, even in the past few years, we've been thinking about that, where what if we integrated user-generated content into like VR goggles or AR technology, all these different technologies. And I think regardless of what medium comes out or what sort of marketing channel comes out, user-generated content, or essentially social proof from other people, are always going to exist. They've always existed since the past. But it's like what mediums and distribution channels will come out. That's going to be, I still think there are ways for us to get that right content into that right place. That's how we always think about the future in providing the most value. It's around getting the most effective content, which we're saying is really the customer content and user-generated content, into the right channel and at the right time. So at the right time means which part of the buying journey they would be considering. Right. So regardless of which channel comes out, I think there are still ways to integrate it into those distribution channels. But beyond how we think about the future of storytelling, I saw this one slide that was shared by this one person. His name is David Berkowitz, and he actually connected with me afterwards after I shared this with my team, which is the future of storytelling might be what he's arguing, and sort of what I can think in a lot is called story making. Right. So instead of just telling your story, it's around making your story together with your community and with your audiences and with your customers. So he kind of shares that instead of making the story all about proprietary, these are first kind of new thing, it's going to maybe be more participatory. And the way to do so is by inviting your audience to create that story and make that story with you. Instead of making the storytelling all about centralizing it, what if we decentralize it and organize a group of great influencers or micro-influencers to create content for you? And instead of predetermining your story, what if we embrace the unpredictability of this story making by planning with your audiences who are going to be creating that content? So this is this whole concept of story making being the next step of storytelling. So again, in summary here, instead of telling your story, the brand tells a story. It's like, let's make a story together with our customers and with our audiences who our future customers will listen to more.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned David, because after you published your post, I kind of exchanged emails with him because it was a great intro for me, because I published a blog post as well. Are you a story maker or a storyteller? That kind of touch on that difference. And my philosophy is that at the end of the day, we are all playing a dual role of both story maker and storyteller, because even myself as let's say on the brand side, when I communicate a story, once you receive it, you add your spin to it. Yes. By definition, you are becoming a story maker, because now it has your personal touch. Then you story tell it. So we constantly kind of playing this dual role, and I think
I think that's a fascinating perspective as well. But I can see us as individuals as storytellers, and then collectively we are now story makers.
Yeah. One of the things that also kind of about regardless of the technology also that I thought was fascinating. Have you had a chance to watch a Black Mirror?
Yes.
TV series? All right. So one of the things that probably at least stood out for me was there was one episode there when they talk about the future where, people have like a popularity score.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Exactly. So you think about UGC, you can think like of a future where, your product reviews are becoming almost like your credit score.
Yeah.
And gives you benefits in the real world.
Yeah, I always say that. The explosion of social media and smartphones unlock the keys for us to allow consumers like you and I to be storytellers and story makers for brands now, because they democratized both the smartphones and social media democratized content creation for all of us. So now we have a voice that we can emit out very clearly. And now, because that's not going to go away, it's awesome and to see that brands are embracing that more and weaving that into their marketing more and more.
Yeah, and I think this influence power is really, over time, will turn into currency. And I think that's
what Black Mirror was all about too.
Social
currency. Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. All right, cool. So I just want to finish up for our audience. Now that we went through a nice journey of the UGC visual storytelling, if you can give our audience maybe 3 tips of if they want to get started in UGC marketing, what are simple things that they could start think about? Yeah.
So the first thing is, the one thing I always ask first thing for marketers who are interested in embracing user journey content is first, what is your marketing goal? What are you trying to achieve? And aside from just revenue, like what else is there? And if it's around engagement, if it's around conversion, or if it's around something else or audience growth, whatever it is, like ask yourself that. And then the second question is asking yourself, how can user generated content come into play with that, right? So if my goal is around conversions, then I ask myself, how does user generated content come into that? It's about finding the right content and then putting it in the right parts of the customer journey. And then from there, you can develop your strategy to embrace that and be able to use that at the right time. So, rather than kind of jumping right into like, oh, let's just start using UGC, which I've seen a lot of marketers do, and they don't really understand like what else after that. Start with asking yourself like, what is your marketing goal? And then how can UGC play into that? And then after that, be able to create a strategy with that. And if you guys want to, you guys can, hit us up at tintup.com and then be able to chat with us on strategizing the best ways to leverage user-generated content and customer-generated content for your marketing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, it's about setting up the business objective first, what stage you are aiming, awareness versus conversion, because each one will carry different content type. And as you said earlier,
and different metrics.
Exactly. So you can actually stage the intent and this way kind of extract the right content to match that stage. Yeah,
that's correct.
That's cool. Great. So how our audience can reach out to you, where they can find you?
Yeah, you can go to our website at tintup.com, tintup.com. I always joke that we didn't get tint.com because it was just a little bit too expensive and didn't want to spend money on that. So go to tintup.com, and then you can reach me at tim@tintup.com. So tim@tintup.com if you want. And I can either work with you or introduce you to someone on my team to work with you on that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tim, for a wonderful conversation today. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm sure our audience is going to enjoy, try to implement those great information as they roll out their marketing programs. And we're going to be including a video recording on our website, including the Visual Storytelling Today podcast, with lots of the examples that Tim talked about. So you'll have all this information in one place. And until next time, don't let your story wait too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Visual Storytelling Today is recorded in Miami, Florida. The show is published exclusively by Visual Storytelling Institute. Learn more at visualstorytell.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on the iTunes Store. Until next time, don't let your big story wait to be told.